The wind had teeth that night. It bit through wool and cotton, through skin and resolve, through every thin scrap of hope that clung to the 5 figures moving across the frozen river like shadows that had lost their way. The ice groaned beneath them, a long, low sound that seemed to rise from the depths of the water and the darkness and the years. Overhead, the sky was a hard, star-pocked dome, without mercy, without warmth. The moon hung low and thin, a frail sliver of light that did little more than outline their shapes and glitter along the jagged cracks in the river's frozen skin. Isaac's breath came out in clouds that instantly became part of the night. Each step sent a sharp pain shooting up from his toes to his ankles, from his ankles to his knees. His boots, taken from a dead man 2 years ago, had never fit him, not properly. Now they were stiff with frost, the leather splitting at the sides. He could no longer feel his toes. He was half afraid that if he looked down he would see bloody smears on the ice, marking every footfall. "Keep moving," Ruth whispered behind him, her voice no more than a hoarse thread. She carried her daughter in her arms, 12-year-old Marianne, wrapped in a dark shawl that had once been blue and cheerful. Marianne's face was buried against Ruth's chest, her arms tucked between their bodies. The girl had not spoken in over an hour. Isaac didn't know if that was from exhaustion or fear or simple, frozen resignation. Ahead of him, Samuel walked with the slow, heavy determination of a man who had decided long ago that he would not die on another man's land. Tall and broad-shouldered, his silhouette looked almost carved against the weak moonlight, the collar of his coat up around his ears. To his left, Abel limped, his right leg dragging slightly, the result of an old injury from a fall on the plantation stone steps. He had insisted on coming anyway. Had told Isaac that if he died out here, it was still better than dying there. Behind Ruth and Marion walked Jacob, the youngest of them, barely 19, with hands still bearing the faint calluses of work that had never quite broken him. He had a scrap of cloth tied over his mouth, leaving only his eyes exposed. They were wide and bright in the dark, darting back and forth, searching for threats that might rise up from the ice or the shore or the tree line beyond. "Almost there," Samuel said, his voice roughened by cold and despair. "They said the far bank is Canada. Once we reach the far bank, we're across." But the far bank seemed to pull away as they walked. The dark line of trees, the uneven slope of the snowy shore, the suggestion of safety, none of it seemed any closer than it had 10 minutes ago, or 20. The wind shifted, sending a spray of fine snow across the ice, and the moon slipped behind a loose drift of cloud. For a moment, they were all but blind. Isaac slowed, his heart pounding in his chest. The ice beneath his feet gave a sudden sharp crack, far too close, as if answering his doubt. He froze, every muscle tight, his eyes instinctively lifting toward the sky as if help might fall from it. "Don't stop," Samuel said. "You stop, you freeze. You freeze, you fall. You fall, you die. Keep moving." Isaac pushed forward, measuring each step, feeling for the subtle give beneath him. He had learned the sounds of danger on the plantation, the snap of a twig that meant the overseer was nearby, the creak of a door that meant the master was in a mood to hurt someone. Now he listened for the low, hollow note of thin ice, trying to distinguish it from the constant groan that echoed under his feet. Somewhere far behind them, on the American shore, a dog barked. Another answered. Isaac flinched, glancing over his shoulder. In the distance, small and flickering, he could see lanterns moving along the bank like fireflies that had lost their pattern. "They know," Jacob rasped. "They been knowin'," Abel muttered. "Question is only if we get across before they get a boat on us." "They won't follow on the ice," Samuel said. "Too risky with their horses. Too proud to crawl on their bellies like we do." As if to punish his confidence, the ice cracked again, louder this time, the sound splitting the night. Ruth stopped, clutching Marion tighter. Isaac felt the vibration travel up through his boots, into his bones, up along his spine. "Samuel," Isaac said quietly. "To the left, the ice looks darker." Samuel turned his head slightly, following Isaac's gaze. He nodded once. "We angle right. Stay over where it's white and thick." He raised his voice just enough for the others to hear. "Follow my steps. Single file. Watch where my feet go." He altered his path slightly, bearing right, toward a patch where the ice was ridged and snow-covered. The 5 of them bent into the wind like figures in a painting, heads bowed, shoulders hunched, each carrying a weight that could not be seen but was felt with every breath. The cold sang in their ears. Their fingers were stiff and clumsy even inside their thin, mismatched gloves. Isaac's thoughts slid back for an instant to the man who had given them the instructions. A white man with tired eyes and a soft voice, waiting in the shadows of a barn on the last night they spent on American soil. He had unrolled a crude sketch of the river, the shorelines, the approximate crossing. "You'll follow the lantern on the far bank," he had said. "There's a woman there, a widow. Marion Lemaire. Some say Lamy, something French. She'll take you in. Don't stop on the ice. Don't answer if anyone calls. And if you hear a crack, move away from it, not toward each other. Spread out your weight, and for God's sake, don't run." Now Isaac heard those words over and over again, as if the man were walking beside him. The widow on the far bank. A house. A fire. Food. Blankets. Names spoken without fear. The promise had seemed too large to hold, like trying to carry a river in cup hands. But they had nothing else to carry. He stepped forward again, his eyes locked on Samuel's shoulders. The wind gusted, and for a moment it lifted the hem of Samuel's coat, revealing the patched trousers beneath, the shape of his legs moving like a machine that was running out of oil. A sudden, sharp sound spun Isaac around. It was not the groan of ice, not the hollow shift of cracking. It was a scream. Ruth's voice tore through the night. "Marianne." Isaac turned in time to see Ruth lurching sideways, one foot sliding, her body twisting as she tried to keep hold of her daughter. Marianne's shawl had slipped, her small face exposed to the night. Her eyes were half closed, lashes crusted with frost. Ruth's arms, numb and weak from hours of holding the girl, finally lost their strength. Marianne slipped. Her feet hit a patch of bare ice. It was slick and sloped, and she slid several feet before her weight struck a thin spot. The ice beneath her gave a sickening, splintering sound, and then it broke, a jagged black mouth opening in the white river, swallowing her without ceremony. There was a heavy splash, a gasp, and then an awful silence. Ruth fell to her knees, the sound she made more animal than human. "Marianne. Marianne. Baby, reach for Mama. Reach." She lunged forward, clawing at the edge of the broken ice with bare hands, the gloves already lost somewhere behind them. The edge crumbled further, dropping another sheet into the churning black water below. A plume of freezing spray hit her face. She didn't flinch. Samuel wheeled around, eyes wide. "Ruth." "Don't." But Ruth had already thrown herself flat, spreading her weight, reaching down into the frigid darkness. "Marianne." She choked. "Give me your hand." There was no answer. Only the dull churn of black water, the low grind as the broken slabs rubbed against each other. "Ruth," Isaac said hoarsely. "Ruth, you can't. I'm not leaving her." Ruth screamed, the sound jagged, cracking against the night the way the ice had cracked. "I'm not leaving my baby in this river." She thrust her arm deep into the water, up to her shoulder, her whole body shaking. Isaac saw her fingers moving, searching blindly. He could hear her teeth chattering even over the wind, hear her breath hitching in ragged sobs. Jacob stepped forward instinctively, dropping to his knees, crawling closer to her. Let me help." Samuel grabbed the back of Jacob's coat and yanked him away. "You go in after her. You're both lost," he said, his voice low, furious. "We lose all of you, for nothing. You stay back." But the girl, Jacob protested, his eyes shining with tears that instantly froze on his lashes. "She's gone," Abel said quietly, his own face set, eyes hollow. "That water you feel, that air, boy. Imagine the water." She didn't have a minute in it. 20 seconds, maybe. Ruth screamed again, a sound that shook them all. Her arms stopped moving. Slowly, like a tree sagging under ice, her body began to tremble, then stiffen. Her free hand clawed at the ice, trying to pull herself further in, as if she might somehow sink down to Marianne and stay with her. Isaac moved then. He didn't think. He didn't weigh. He didn't calculate risk, or odds, or the distance to the shore, or the number of men with lanterns closing in behind them. He dropped to his belly and began to crawl toward Ruth, spreading his weight as wide as he could, hearing every inch of ice, feeling every shift and groan. The cold soaked through his clothes, biting into his skin. "Isaac!" Samuel barked. "You stop, right now." But Isaac kept going. The only thing he could see was Ruth's hand, pale and limp now on the ice, her other arm still submerged in the black slit that had taken her child. Her sobs had become broken little gasps, each one weaker than the last. He reached her and grabbed the back of her dress, fingers slipping on the frozen fabric. "Ruth," he gasped. You can't stay here. Come on. Come back. Come back to us." "Hez right," Abel called, his breath shredding the words. "Ruth, she gone. You know she gone. Don't let that river take you, too." Ruth's head turned slightly. Isaac could see her eyes, wide and unfocused, rimmed with ice crystals. "I promised her," she whispered. "I told her I'd get her to a place where they say our names out loud. I told her." Her jaw trembled uncontrollably. "I ain't going without my child." "You think Shed wants you to follow?" Isaac said, forcing the words out. "You think Shed wants you to give up what we came for?" "We came to live, Ruth. We came so you could live. So you could say her name when no man could whip it out of you. You stay here, and we lose you too. We lose all of us." He pulled hard. The ice beneath them protested with a long, shuddering crack. Jacob cried out, and even Samuel swore softly under his breath. "Isaac, if it breaks, we lose you both," Samuel said. "You feel that? You feel it moving?" "Yeah," Isaac answered through clenched teeth. "I feel it. Now help me anyway." Samuel hesitated only a second more, then dropped down and crawled forward, slower, more cautious, his bulk spreading out like a man trying to hug the river itself. Abel took a few steps closer as well, though he stayed on slightly higher ice, his leg trembling from strain and cold. Together, they pulled. Ruth's arm came free of the water. Her sleeve was stiff with ice, the skin beneath already pale, the fingers bent in strange angles that did not seem fully human. She gave a thin cry of pain as the cold shot all the way up to her shoulder and beyond, stabbing into her chest. "No, no, Marian," she whispered, but the words had no strength now. Isaac wrapped his arm around her waist, Samuel gripping her shoulder. They dragged her back inch by inch, scraping her dress across the ice, digging their own elbows in to keep from sliding forward into the hole themselves. The crack had widened, long thin fingers reaching out from the main break like the veins of some hungry thing. Water seeped up in places, darkening the white surface around them. At last, they were clear. Isaac rolled onto his back, chest heaving, staring up at the sky. His lungs burned. His hand screamed with pain as blood tried to return to his fingers. Ruth lay beside him on her side, curled around her empty arms as if Marian were still there, her body racked with sobs that came with less and less force. "We have to move," Samuel said, his voice iron again, though his eyes were damp. They heard that scream. Every man on that bank heard it. Every dog. They know exactly where we are now. We stay here, we die here. Ruth didn't move. Isaac pushed himself up, his knees trembling. He looked down at her, at the woman who had walked 2 nights without sleep to carry her daughter when the girl could no longer walk, who had held Marianne's hand across fields and ditches and back roads. She looked smaller now, as if some piece of her had been torn away and dragged under the ice along with her child. "Ruth," he said softly, "can you stand?" She didn't answer. Her eyes were half closed, her breath shallow and rapid. Isaac reached down and took her by both hands, hauling her up. She swayed badly. Samuel stepped in quickly, wrapping an arm around her shoulders to keep her from falling. "It'll take her weight," Samuel said. "Jacob, get in front of us. Watch for dark spots on the ice. Abel, you stay just behind, if you can." Abel nodded, his jaw clenched. "I can," he said simply. Isaac glanced once at the black, open gash in the ice where Marian had gone under. There was no sign of her, no scrap of cloth, no small hand reaching up. The surface had begun to refreeze already at the edges, thin clear film creeping inward like a cruel bandage over an unthinkable wound. In his chest, something bent under the strain. It did not break. He turned away. They moved again. The far bank was closer now, undeniably. The trees were clearer, the slope more defined. Isaac could see the suggestion of a path leading up through the snow, the dark cut of wagon ruts frozen into the ground. More importantly, he saw the faint, wavering glow of a lantern. It swung slowly, back and forth, as if caught in a light wind. The flame inside shivered, but did not go out. The lantern seemed to hang in the air at the top of the slope, near where a fence line broke, just beneath the crooked silhouette of a tall, leafless tree. "That's her," Jacob whispered. It has to be. The man said the lantern would be there. Samuel did not answer, but Isaac could see the tension in his shoulders ease, just a fraction. Ruth shuffled between them, her weight mostly in Samuel's arms. Her feet moved automatically, following the pull of their bodies. Her eyes were fixed on nothing. The wind picked up as they neared the shore, whipping up loose snow, stinging their eyes. Isaac squinted into it, lifting one arm to shield his face. His cheeks burned as if slapped repeatedly by invisible hands. Behind them, far across the river, he saw more lanterns now, at least 3, maybe 4. Small, bobbing lights scattered along the American shore. The barking of the dogs had grown more frenzied. Voices carried faintly, distorted by distance and wind. "Hurry," Abel murmured. "God, we gotta hurry." The ice near the shore was rougher, broken by old cracks, ridges of frozen slush, and places where it appeared to have refrozen after earlier thaws. They had to pick their way carefully, stepping over jagged protrusions, testing each patch with cautious pressure. The river itself narrowed slightly here, but the current beneath was stronger, and the ice bore the marks of that straining motion. At last, Samuel stepped up onto a chunk that rose higher than the rest, then onto the hard-packed snow of the shore. He turned and reached for Ruth, lifting her the last small distance, as if the ice itself were reluctant to let her go. The moment Isaac felt solid ground beneath his boots, his legs nearly gave out. He dropped to one knee, fingers clutching at the frozen grass under the thin layer of snow. It felt real in a way the ice never had. It felt like something that belonged to land, and not to the unpredictable, shifting depths beneath. One at a time, Samuel said, "Slow, careful. Don't trip now, not when we're so close." Jacob stepped up, then Abel, his limp more pronounced on the uneven surface. Isaac hauled himself fully onto the bank and stood, swaying slightly, his body screaming for rest while his mind screamed for movement. "Come on," he said. The lantern. They began to climb. The slope was steeper than it had seemed from the river, and the snow here was deeper, drifting in small drifts that reached up to their shins. Their feet sank and slipped, sending small cascades of snow sliding back down behind them. The lantern grew larger and brighter with each step, its warm golden circle of light a stark contrast to the cold blue of the moonlit snow. At the top of the slope, just beyond the lantern, stood a figure. She was wrapped in a wool cloak, it had pulled up, a scarf covering the lower half of her face. Only her eyes were visible, dark, steady, watching them with an intensity that made Isaac want to look away and hold her gaze at the same time. Her hands were bare despite the cold, one holding the lantern by its metal handle, the other resting lightly on the fence post beside her. As they reached the top, she stepped forward into the lantern's light. Her hair, what little of it was visible beneath the hood, was dark and threaded with grey. Fine lines marked the skin around her eyes. There was a sharpness to her features, a certain angular, weathered quality, like a rock face worn by wind and years. But there was also something else there, some flicker of compassion that had not yet been beaten down by hardship. "You're late," she said softly, her breath visible in the light as a brief white cloud. Her voice carried the faintest trace of a French accent. "He said you would be here before midnight." Samuel drew in a breath, his chest rising and falling heavily. "Ice was thinner than we thought," he answered. "We had to slow some." We lost. He glanced at Ruth, whose head hung forward, her hair stiff with ice at the tips. Marion's eyes flicked to the woman, then back to the men, taking them all in with one sweeping gaze. "There were 6 names," she said quietly. "A man named Elijah. Where is he?" Isaac swallowed hard. "He didn't make it as far as the river," he said. "Riders caught us near the wood line. He made time for the rest of us. They took him back." Something moved in Marion's eyes at that, though she only nodded. "Then I light the lantern for 5 instead of 6, she said. "But tonight, I see only 4 standing. Who did the river take from you?" Ruth's shoulders shook once, a small, broken motion. She made a sound, but it was not a word. Samuel answered for her. "Her daughter," he said. "Marianne." Ice broke under her feet. We couldn't reach her in time." Marion took a long, slow breath, her fingers tightening around the lantern handle. "I am sorry," she said simply. "The river, it takes what it wants, when it wants. I have lost to it as well." For a moment, there was only the wind, moving through the bare branches of the tree overhead, rattling them like bones. Then Marion straightened. "There is nothing we can do for her now," she said, her tone firm but not unkind. "But there is something we can do for the living. Come. My house is not far. We must get you inside before your bodies surrender to the cold." She looked at Ruth again, more carefully. "She needs warmth. And food. And sleep. All of you do. Can you walk?" Ruth did not answer. "I'll carry her," Samuel said. "No," Marion said at once. "If you try to carry her all the way, you will both fall, and then I will have 5 bodies to lay out instead of 4. We walk slowly, together. I will fetch the sleigh." She lifted the lantern, signaling with a small motion of her wrist. From deeper in the darkness, just beyond the fence, there came a faint jingle of harness, the soft snort of a horse. Isaac hadn't seen the animal at first, half hidden behind a stand of bushes. Now it stepped forward, its breath steaming in the cold, a simple wooden sled trailing behind it on metal runners. Marion handed the reins to Jacob. "Hold him steady," she said. "His name is Bo. He is sometimes more stubborn than wise." Jacob nodded, his gloved hands closing around the worn leather with something like awe. Marion set the lantern down on a hook at the front of the sled, then moved to help Samuel lift Ruth gently onto it, laying her on a folded blanket. Ruth did not protest. Her eyes were open, staring up at the sky, but they did not seem to see it. "You're safe now," Marion said quietly, almost as if she were testing the sound of the words. "This is Canada. No slave catcher has the right to lay a hand on you here." "Right don't stop bullets," Abel muttered, but he stepped closer to the sled, his eyes lingering on Ruth's face. Marion heard him. "No," she said. "No, it does not. But law gives us something to stand on when we fight. And fight we do, when we must." She looked back toward the river. The lanterns on the distant shore had multiplied, weaving back and forth like fireflies trapped in a dark glass. They will not cross tonight. Not on the ice. Their courage wears boots, and boots do not love rivers. She clicked her tongue softly and tugged the reins. The horse started forward, pulling the sled, the runners whispering over the snow. "Come," she said again, glancing briefly over her shoulder. "Walk beside. It is not far. Then we will see what the night has left you." They followed. The path wound between bare trees and low stone walls, past dark shapes that were likely barns or sheds. The snow was deeper here in the open fields, but the sled cut a clean path, and Isaac found himself grateful for the way it allowed Ruth to be carried without dragging at Samuel's already frayed strength. After a short walk that felt both too long and too short, a house came into view. It was not large, but it stood solid, its dark shape outlined against the faint glow of the sky. A single chimney coughed out a thin line of smoke. Yellow light spilled from the windows on the ground floor, warmth promised but not yet felt. A porch wrapped around the front, its steps half buried in snow. A lantern hung by the door, its glass clouded by years of use, casting a dull light on the packed earth below. Marion led them to the side entrance, where the ground was more sheltered from the wind. She tied the horse to a post, murmuring a few soft words into its ear, then turned and opened the door. Heat hit Isaac like a physical blow. It was not overwhelming. This was not the deep, smothering warmth of the plantation's grand kitchen or the master's parlor, but it was enough. Enough to sting his cheeks and make his eyes water. Enough to melt the outer crusts of ice that clung to their clothes. Enough to remind his body, suddenly and almost painfully, of what it meant not to be freezing. The air inside smelled of wood smoke and potatoes and something like onions. A narrow hallway ran straight ahead, with doors opening off to either side. At the far end, an open doorway revealed the faint glow of a fire. "Take off your boots," Marion said. "All of you. We will dry them by the stove. I will not have you trekking half the river into my house." Her tone was brisk, almost stern, but there was something underneath it, a careful kindness, perhaps, or a fear of what might happen if she let herself feel too much. Isaac bent awkwardly to unlace his boots, his fingers clumsy and numb. It took longer than it should have. When he finally eased them off, he felt the air bite at his damp socks, then the prickling pain of blood returning to frozen toes. He swallowed a groan. Marion moved quickly down the hall, calling out softly. A moment later, a boy of about 10 appeared in the doorway at the far end, his hair sleep-mussed, his eyes heavy but curious. He wore a wool shirt that was too big for him, the sleeves rolled up, and thick socks on his feet. "Thomas," Marion said, "the guests have arrived. Take their boots to the kitchen. Lay them by the stove." Do not let them touch the fire. We do not need the smell of burning leather tonight. The boy nodded and moved toward them, his gaze flickering from face to face, then dropping quickly, as if he had been taught not to stare. He gathered the boots carefully, Isaac's, then Samuel's, then Abel's and Jacob's, arms full, and carried them away. What about her? Jacob asked quietly, looking at Ruth. She will come in on the sled, Marion said. But first we lay down blankets. Thomas. Yes, Marmon, the boy's voice called from the kitchen. Bring 2 more blankets and the oil lamp. And tell your sister to stay in her room until I say otherwise. Yes, Marmon. Marion turned back to the men. You, she said to Samuel, and you, to Isaac, lift her carefully. We will keep her on the sled for now and bring it into the back room. The floor in there is sturdy. I have laid out straw. They did as she said. The sled slid over the threshold with a low scrape, its runners leaving faint tracks on the worn wooden boards. The back room was small, its walls darkened by years of smoke. The straw on the floor rustled under the sled as they positioned it near a low iron stove that radiated a gentle, steady heat. Marion knelt beside Ruth, her hands working quickly to peel away the frozen shawl, to loosen the stiff fabric of her dress near the shoulders. Ruth shivered violently, then went nearly still. Do not sleep yet, Marion murmured, more to herself than anyone else. Not yet. First we get the cold out. Then you sleep. She looked up at Isaac and Samuel. Go wash your hands in the basin by the door, she said. Then you come to the kitchen. You need food. Hot drink. We cannot have you falling over from hunger when there is still work to be done. Work? Abel asked, his voice thin. There is always work, Marion said simply. Someone must keep watch. Someone must help tend her. She glanced at Ruth again. Someone must write down what happened tonight, while it is still clear. Isaac frowned slightly. Write it down. Yes. Marion stood, brushing straw from her skirt. If we do not write it, no one will believe it. And if no one believes, nothing changes. She gave a small, tight smile that did not reach her eyes. You did not come all this way for nothing. Now go. Eat. I will stay with her. They moved as if in a dream. The kitchen was warmer still, the stove glowing with red coals behind its iron door. A large pot sat on top, steam trailing lazily from its lid. The table in the middle of the room was scarred and stained, its surface clean but marked by a lifetime of use. Thomas was laying the boots out in a careful row near the stove, his small hands arranging them with almost reverent concentration. At the table sat a girl of about 16. Her brown hair was braided and coiled on top of her head, though a few strands had escaped, curling around her face. She wore a plain dress with an apron over it, her fingers wrapped around a chipped mug from which steam rose. Her eyes jumped to the men as they entered, widening slightly. This is Elise, Marion said from the doorway, having followed them in. My daughter. She will help serve tonight. Elise stood quickly, setting her mug down. Bonsoir, she said, then corrected herself. Good evening. Welcome. Her English carried the same soft French undertone as her mother's, though lighter. Please. Sit. Isaac and the others sank onto the wooden chairs with a kind of groaning relief. The warmth seeped slowly into their bones. Their fingers ached. Their faces tingled. Isaac became suddenly aware of just how empty his stomach was, how long it had been since their last meal. Elise moved around the table, placing bowls in front of them, then ladling thick stew from the pot. The smell of it nearly undid Isaac: potatoes, carrots, a hint of meat, onions that had been browned until sweet. His hand shook as he wrapped them around the bowl, the heat so intense at first that he almost pulled back, then embraced it. Eat slowly, Marion warned. If you swallow it too fast, your stomach will protest. You must remind your body how to accept kindness. They obeyed as best they could, though the first spoonful felt like a miracle, the second like a sin, the third like a sacrament. Jacob choked up halfway through his bowl, tears spilling down his cheeks as if the warmth itself had reached some hidden place and broken it open. He wiped at them angrily with the back of his hand, but more followed. I'm sorry, he muttered. I'm sorry. You do not apologize for tears, Marion said. This house has seen many, and it will see more. Better tears than the silence the masters demand. They ate until the bowls were empty, then drank hot tea that tasted faintly of mint. Color began to return to their faces. The shivering slowed, though it did not stop entirely. After a while, Marion drew out a chair and sat at the head of the table, a small leather-bound notebook and a pencil in her hands. "Now," she said, "tell me your names. Slowly, so I can spell them. I will write them here, so they do not vanish into the dark like smoke." She looked at Isaac first. He straightened slightly, his spoon hanging forgotten in his hand. No one had ever asked him to spell his name before. On the plantation, names were things given and taken at another's whim, tossed like scraps to dogs. Here, at this table, with the lamp burning low overhead and the storm wind rattling faintly at the window, the question felt heavier. "My name is Isaac," he said. "Isaac. I think." That's how the preacher wrote it once, on a list. Marion nodded, her pencil scratching softly on the paper. "Isaac," she repeated. "Good. And you?" She turned to Samuel. "Samuel," he said. "Like in the Bible. Samuel. Or so I was told." "Samuel," she wrote. "And you?" "Abel," Abel said quietly. "Abel. Same as the one Cain killed." Marion looked up at him, a brief, flickering sympathy in her gaze. "And yet you are still here," she said. "That matters." She looked at Jacob. "You?" "Jacob," he said. Jacob. She wrote, then paused. "And the woman in the other room?" "Ruth," Isaac said softly. "Her name is Ruth. Ruth. Her daughter was Marianne. Marianne, I think." She liked the sound of it when the mistress said it once. So she took it. Marion wrote both names, underlining Marianne's. "Ruth," she murmured. "Marianne. Good." She closed the notebook briefly, pressing her palm against the worn cover. "Now, Isaac, tell me what happened, from the time you left the barn on the American side until the moment you stepped onto my land. Tell me everything you remember. Leave nothing out." Isaac hesitated. His body cried out for sleep. His eyes felt heavy. But something in Marion's gaze, steadfast, expectant, almost pleading, held him in place. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Why write it down at all? It's enough we crossed, ain't it?" "No," Marion said. "It is not enough. Not if the world refuses to see. There will be men who say you had it better where you were. Men who say the river is kind, that it only takes those who are meant to go. Men who say we exaggerate, that ice cannot hurt so much as the whip. If I put your words here," she tapped the notebook, "if I send them to those who fight in Parliament, in churches, in the newspapers, then maybe some will read, and believe, and act. Or maybe they will not. But silence is the ally of slavery. I will not be silent." She set the notebook down between them, open to the page with their names. The pencil lay ready, its point sharp. "Please," she said. "Tell me." For her. Her eyes flicked briefly toward the back room, where Ruth lay. For Marianne. Isaac closed his eyes for a moment, seeing again the black water, the frantic scrabble of Ruth's hands, the empty gap where a child had been. When he opened them, his voice came out low but steady. "We left the barn 2 hours before midnight," he began. "The man who met us there, he said the riders were still searching another road. He told us to move fast but not to run. He said the ice would talk to us if we listened. His words poured into the small room like another kind of river, carrying with them the raw, jagged pieces of the night, the dog barks, the distant shouts, the crack of ice, the scream." Marion wrote as he spoke, her pencil sometimes racing, sometimes pausing so she could look up and ask for a detail. How many lanterns, how wide the break in the ice, how long the scream had lasted. As Isaac spoke, Samuel and Abel added small corrections. Details had missed or softened. Jacob, now calmer, filled in what he had seen from the back of the line, how the lantern on the Canadian shore had flickered in the wind, how Marion's figure had first appeared like a shadow at the edge of that light. By the time he finished, Isaac's throat was dry. His tea had gone cold. His hands lay still on the table, fingers no longer trembling. Marion looked down at the pages, then closed the notebook gently. "Merci," she said softly. "Thank you. It is not a small thing you have done, to speak it. It cost something, to remember." She stood, slipping the notebook into the pocket of her skirt. "You may sleep now. There is a pallet in the front room, near the stove. Blankets. You will not be alone. I have had others before. Some stayed one night. Some stayed a month. One boy stayed a year and then went west to find land of his own. There is a place in this house for your weariness tonight. She looked at them each in turn. Tomorrow, we will speak of where you go next. Next. Jacob said faintly. I thought this was it. That once we crossed, we were finished. Marian's smile was brief and sad. Freedom is not a destination, she said. It is a road. You have taken the first step across the river. There are many more steps ahead. But you do not have to take them all tonight. Tonight, you rest. Samuel pushed his chair back slowly, his joints cracking. What about Ruth? He asked. We can't leave her alone. She is not alone, Marian said. Elise is with her now, warming her hands, talking to her. Sometimes a woman needs another woman's voice more than any man's hands. She placed a hand on Samuel's arm briefly. If I need you, I will send Thomas. Until then you sleep. Your body will decide for you, one way or another. They rose, moving with the heavy, unsteady gait of men in whom exhaustion had finally claimed its due. Marian showed them to the front room, where a low pallet had been laid out near the stove. They collapsed onto it, the blanket scratchy but warm. Within minutes, the room was filled with the quiet, uneven sounds of their breathing. Isaac lay on his back, staring at the ceiling beams, tracing the patterns of age and smoke there. His eyes drifted toward the window, where the faint ghost of the lantern outside flickered against the glass. Somewhere beyond that, the river flowed under its blanket of ice, indifferent and endless. He closed his eyes. Sleep came hard and fast, dragging him down like the river had dragged Marianne, but into another kind of dark. In it, he saw fields covered not in snow but in green men working not in chains but with tools they owned, children running through streets where no overseer's whistle blew. The images were blurred, out of reach, but they were there. In another room, Ruth lay on the sled still, though blankets had been piled over her. Elise sat beside her, gently rubbing her arms, telling her in a soft, steady voice about small, ordinary things, the names of the chickens, the time she had slipped on the ice and laughed, the way the sun looked on the first day of spring when the snow finally began to melt. Ruth's eyes stared at the ceiling, unblinking, her body trembling occasionally as if the river still held onto some part of her. Every few minutes, she whispered a single word, too quiet for Elise to understand. After a time, Marian came in and knelt beside her. Ruth, she said quietly, can you hear me? Ruth's lips moved. Marianne, she whispered. My Marianne. I know, Marian said. She took Ruth's hand in hers, feeling the cold still clinging there. I know. The river took my husband. He went out in late winter to check the ice by the mill. It gave way beneath him. They pulled him out an hour later, but it was already too late. For weeks, I could not walk past the water without hearing him. I wanted to lie down and follow him, to let it take me too. But I had Thomas and Elise. They did not ask for the river. They asked for me. Ruth's eyes shifted slightly, focusing on Marian's face. How? She whispered. How you stay here. How you stand the sound. I do not stand it, Marian said. I live with it. And I speak over it. That is how I fight it. That is how I keep it from swallowing everything. She squeezed Ruth's hand. I wrote his name down. I wrote what happened. I told others. In the telling, I built a small wall against the water. You have that, too. We wrote Marianne's name. We wrote what the ice did. It is not enough. But it is something. And tomorrow, if you wish, you can tell me more. About her. About the way she laughed, or sang, or how she curled her hair at night. We can put that on the page, too. That way, the river does not get all of her. A tear slid slowly from the corner of Ruth's eye, carving a clean track through the dried salt on her cheek. She liked to hum, she whispered, when she thought nobody was listening. Little tunes she heard in the big house, when the missus played the piano. She'd hum them outside, hanging wash, like she was stealing something fine and quiet. Marian nodded, her own throat tight. Then we will write that, she said. We will make sure the world knows there was a girl who hummed stolen piano songs on a plantation porch. That she existed. That she crossed a river in the night. That the ice took her, but not everything. She reached for the notebook again, opening it to a new page. In the flickering light of the oil lamp, While Isaac and the others slept and the river groaned softly in the distance, Marion LeMay wrote down the story of Marianne, a name and a few small details, a memory of a hum, the image of a girl wrapped in a shawl. It was not enough to bring her back. It was not enough to balance the scales of justice. But it was something that the cold could not touch. Outside, the lantern by the fence burned on, its light small but stubborn against the vast winter night. Morning came slowly to Willow Creek. The sky lightened from black to deep blue, then to a pale, washed-out grey. The cold did not loosen its grip exactly, but it shifted, becoming less sharp, more solid, like a hand that no longer squeezes the throat but rests heavily on the shoulders. Isaac woke with a start, unsure for a moment where he was. The smell of wood smoke and stew, the soft ticking of the stove, the faint murmur of voices in another room, they all seemed to reach him from a great distance. Then the memories filtered back. The river, the house, the woman with the notebook. His body ached in a dozen places. When he sat up, his joints protested. Samuel was already awake, sitting on the edge of the pallet, his elbows on his knees, his hands clasped loosely. His eyes were open, staring at the floor. Abel lay on his side, snoring softly. Jacob was curled up near the stove, one arm over his face to block the light. "We're still here," Isaac said quietly. Samuel grunted, a noncommittal sound. After a moment, he said, "I dreamed of the fields. But there weren't no overseer. Just rows and rows of corn, and nobody but us walking between 'em. I could stop when I wanted. Sit when I wanted." He shook his head slightly. "Even in dreams, my back hurts." Isaac managed a small, tired smile. "Maybe that means something," he said. "Dreams changing, I mean." Samuel didn't answer. His gaze drifted toward the doorway, where they could hear the clatter of dishes, the murmur of Marion's voice, the lighter chatter of Elise's. The ordinary sounds of a house beginning its day. "We gotta decide," Samuel said at last. "If we stay. If we move on. Where we go. Today?" Isaac asked, surprised. Samuel shrugged. "We don't do it today. We do it tomorrow. Either way, decision waits for nobody. They might come up with some new law, some new trick, some new way to reach across that river. Best we move further in, I think. Deeper into this land." He paused. "But first, we see if she wants to move at all." They rose, stretching stiff limbs, and followed the sounds of life to the kitchen. Marion was at the stove, flipping something in a pan that smelled of flour and fat. Elise moved between table and cupboard, setting out mugs, cutting a loaf of bread. Thomas was perched on a stool near the window, whittling something small and indistinct from a scrap of wood, his tongue poking out slightly at the corner of his mouth in concentration. "Good morning," Marion said, glancing up briefly. "Or what passes for it, in this cold. How are your feet?" Isaac flexed his toes inside his dried socks. "Still there," he said. "Far as I can tell." "Then we keep them," Marion replied. "Sit. There is porridge and bread. After you eat, you may see Ruth." She nodded toward the back room. "She woke once during the night. Spoke some. I think she is still with us. But she is in a deep place, closer to the river than to the house, if you understand me." Isaac nodded. He understood all too well. They ate again, though the food went down slower this time, their bodies less desperate now that the immediate edge of hunger had been dulled. As they did, Marion unfolded a piece of paper she had placed on the mantel overnight, weighed down with a smooth stone. "I wrote a letter after you went to sleep," she said. "To a man in Toronto. Reverend James Morrow. He runs a small house there that receives people like you. From there, some go to work in the town. Some join logging crews further north. Some go west to farm. I have told him to expect 4 men and 1 woman when the roads are passable." Samuel frowned. "Roads not passable now?" Marion snorted very softly. "Not unless you wish to die in a snowdrift," she said. "The last storm made the smaller roads vanish. The main road is better, but still treacherous. We must wait at least a few days. Perhaps longer. It depends on the sky. We don't want to be a burden," Abel said. Marion looked at him, one eyebrow lifting. "Burden," she repeated, as if tasting the word. "You think you are the first to sleep on my floor? To drink my tea?" She shook her head. "It is my work. My choice. No one forced me to hang that lantern. If you had not come, someone else would have. If no one came, I would still light it, because I must. So do not talk to me of burdens. We all carry something. I have chosen this." Elise glanced at her mother, something like pride shining briefly in her eyes. Thomas set down his carving and watched the men with open curiosity now, emboldened by the morning. "Did you see any wolves?" he asked Jacob. "On the river?" Jacob blinked, surprised. "No," he said. "Only men." And that was enough. Thomas nodded solemnly, as if this confirmed some theory of his. After they had eaten, Isaac asked if he could see Ruth. Marion led him to the back room again. The air there was cooler, though the stove still radiated a steady warmth. Ruth lay on a pallet now, the sled pushed to one side. Her skin had a slightly healthier color, though her eyes were still shadowed deeply. She turned her head as Isaac approached, her gaze slowly focusing. "Isaac," she said faintly. "I'm here," he answered, kneeling beside her. "How you feeling?" She considered this, her brow furrowing. "Heavy," she said at last. "Like I'm made of stone, and someone dropped me in deep water." Isaac swallowed. "You're not in the water no more," he said. "You in a house. In Canada. Across the line. Nobody can take you back now, not without a fight. And this woman," he nodded toward Marion, "she got a fight in her, I think." Marion gave a small, humorless smile. Some would say too much. Ruth's eyes filled suddenly, tears spilling down the sides of her face into her hair. "She's gone," she whispered. "I keep waiting to hear her little feet, to see her peek round a door. But she ain't here. She's in that river. All that way we walked, all the nights we slept in ditches, and she ends in water." Isaac felt his own throat close. "I know," he said softly. "I know. It ain't right. It ain't fair. There ain't no words gonna make it feel less wrong." He paused. "But you still here. Maybe that don't feel like a gift now. Maybe it feel like a punishment. But one day, maybe you find something that makes staying worthwhile. I don't know what. A field. A song. A child that needs you. I can't say. But I think Marion would want you to find it. Otherwise, what was the point of her crossing at all?" Ruth closed her eyes, tears still seeping out. She wanted to see snow, she whispered. Real snow. Not just frost. She wanted to catch flakes on her tongue like the white children did. She never got to. Marion stepped forward. "The snow will fall again," she said. "And you will be there to see it. To feel it. To hate it, and then perhaps to love it, in time, for what it means. I cannot give you back your daughter. But I can give you a place to stand while you decide what to do with the life that is left to you." Ruth looked at her, then at Isaac. "Will you stay?" she asked him suddenly. "Here. With them?" Isaac hesitated. He had not yet allowed himself to think beyond the next hour, the next meal. But the question, once spoken, hung between them like breath in cold air. "I don't know," he said honestly. "Part of me wants to keep moving. Get further from that river, from that border. Another part this place," he gestured vaguely. "It feels like a rock in the water. A place to set my feet and catch my breath." He shook his head. "Maybe we stay a little while. Help with wood, with chores. Then see." Ruth nodded slowly, as if that answer, uncertain as it was, gave her something to hold on to. "Then I stay as long as you do," she said softly. "I ain't going back. Even if I wanted, there ain't nothing there for me now. She was all I had there. Here I don't know yet. But I know what I ain't. I ain't property no more." Marion smiled, small but sincere. "No," she said. "You are not." Outside, the sky lightened further, hinting at a sun that could not quite penetrate the clouds. The day would be cold and hard, like all the days that winter. There would be wood to cut, animals to feed, paths to clear. There would be letters to write, food to cook, wounds to tend. But inside the house at Willow Creek, something fragile and stubborn had taken root. It did not have a name yet. It was not quite hope, not quite faith, not quite rage. It was a mixture of these things and more, a determination to stand, to speak, to endure, to remember. Weeks later, when Isaac had learned how to swing an axe in Canadian woods, when Samuel had begun to talk with a man from Toronto about steady work in a yard loading timber, when Abel had found a way to walk that made his limp less painful in the deep snow, when Jacob had started to smile at Elisa's jokes, they would look back at that first night and understand that their lives had split there as surely as the river's ice. There was before Willow Creek, and after. Before was chains and fields and fear. Before was running and hiding and hearing one's own name used like a curse. After was not easy. After was not simple. There were still men in the world who believed they belonged to someone else. There were still laws written in ink that might one day endanger them. The winter would be long. Hunger would visit their bellies again. Loss would not vanish because one girl's name had been written in a notebook. But after also held the possibility of saying no and having it matter. Of refusing to go back. Of standing in a house lit by a lantern hung not to keep them out, but to call them in. On some nights, when the wind was right, they could still hear the river. It groaned and whispered and shifted under its ice, as if reminding them that it was there, that it had not forgotten what it had taken. On those nights, Marion would take out her notebook. She would read aloud the name she had written, the stories she had captured in cramped lines and smudged pencil. Isaac, Samuel, Abel, Jacob, Ruth, Marianne. She would say them slowly, carefully, in both her accented English and her first, older French, as though pronouncing a kind of litany. And the house would hold those names, warm them, keep them from freezing. It did not bring back the dead. It did not change the river. But it made a small, fierce claim in a world that too often pretended not to hear. We were here, the name said. We crossed. We lived.